Hey guys, welcome to my Natural Academia. In today's video, we're going to be discussing nappy hair. Alright guys, so let's talk about the naps. It took a little while for me to come up with the title for this video because honestly, every time I say the word, it just kind of sounds a little bit inappropriate, but I hope you guys are not taking it the wrong way. Alright, so a couple days ago, I asked you guys on the community tab if you guys thought that the word nappy was an insulting term when used to describe natural hair. So the majority of the people that voted in the poll voted yes. The answer choices were yes, no, and indifferent, and 25% of the people that voted said they were indifferent, and then the rest of the people, about 15%, said that they did not think that the word nappy was an insulting term when used to describe natural hair. So in today's video, I just kind of wanted to just analyze the word nappy, where it comes from, who can say it, what it means, and overall if it's an insulting term or not. And you may or may not agree with me at the end, but if you have a different point of view on the word, just go ahead and explain it down below. So anyways, back to the poll that I took. I'm just gonna go ahead and read a few of the comments that I got that I thought were interesting, and they also got a high amount of like interaction, so more people liked them. So I'm just gonna be reading the ones that more people liked, which I feel like more people agree with maybe. So I have one comment, which is my most liked comment, by a person named Okay. They said that the word nappy itself is not an insulting term, but every time someone uses the term nappy, it's always in an insulting way. All right, so another comment that I got from a person by the name Ingrid. They said, I wouldn't use it to describe my own hair. I like kinky or coarse better, but one of my favorite YouTubers has naps in their YouTube name. Another person by the name of Brittany said yes, because whenever I hear people saying it in context, it's always in a negative way. So pretty much most people are saying that when they do hear the word nappy, it's negative and not necessarily positive. Another person by the name of Disa said, over time, the term nappy developed a negative connotation to it. I personally wouldn't use it to describe anyone's hair for that reason. So you guys have a little bit of a gist of what most people think on my channel, at least. If you're new to the channel, I don't know, maybe you may or may not have different point of view, but the majority of people that voted in the poll that I posted and commented agreed that it was kind of insulting when used to describe natural hair. All right, so I've kind of separated my thoughts into 4 different subsections, and I feel like I kind of wanted to do this video in parts, like part 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I didn't know if the word nappy itself deserved that much attention. So I'm just gonna like try to make this video as short as possible and still try to get my point across in as short amount of time as possible. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is what nappy is, like the connotative and denotative definitions of the word nappy, or just a few definitions that I managed to find on the internet describing what nappy is. And then the second thing that I wanted to touch on is where exactly the word nappy comes from. And then the third thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is who can use the word nappy, followed by if it's insulting or not, depending on who uses it, or even the people in our own culture. If we use it, is it insulting or not? So a lot of times when I come up with these types of videos, it's honestly just a thought, and sometimes I just think like, why do we do what we do, or why do we act the way that we do? So this particular video was sparked by a question in my mind, basically asking, like the little voice in my mind was basically asking, why do we associate nappy, the term nappy, with being unmanageable, or vice versa? Why do we associate unmanageable natural hair with being nappy? So that's kind of what was going through my mind when I was thinking about the word nappy. When I first thought about it, I'm like, is it insulting? Is it not insulting? I don't know. So I did a little bit of research on the word nappy, and there's not really much depth to it as much as I thought that there would be. I mean, there is a little bit of depth to the word nappy, but it's not like to the point where it's mind-blowing in a sense. It kind of makes sense what I found. In the grand scheme of things, it was just like, it seemed to be a little bit obvious, but it may not be so obvious to other people. All right, so first, depending on our cultural differences or the context of which the word nappy is used, it can mean different things. It doesn't necessarily mean the same thing all around the world. But as we all know, there are both connotative and denotative meanings for a lot of words in American English, and maybe even outside of English, depending on the context, where it's used and how it's used. It can mean 2 completely different things. The Common Dictionary defines nappy as an adjective. And for those that don't know, adjectives are basically words that describe nouns, or not necessarily describe, but they provide specific details for nouns. All right, so for basic English, if a house is a noun, a red house the red would be the adjective because it describes a noun. Anyways, like I was saying, the Collins Dictionary defines nappy as, well, they have a couple definitions actually, but the first one says covered with nap, or hairy, downy, shaggy, and etc. And the second definition says kinky, especially of the hair of blacks, and used derogatorily or contemptuously. The last definition that I found that I thought would be helpful for this video was from the Merriam-Webster. Their direct definition of nappy is of hair, informal, plus sometimes offensive, naturally coarse and tightly coiled. But anyway, so those are just a few definitions of the word nappy that I was able to find that I thought would be helpful when interpreting what the word nappy is, if it's insulting, who can say it or not. I just thought that those definitions were kind of helpful for this video. Upon some more digging, I found that the word nappy came up around the late 1800s, and it's an adjective for the word nap. And the term nap basically comes from the little small pieces of fiber that raise up on fabric. But the word nappy was an adjective used to describe the word nap in the late 1800s. And there's not a lot of evidence that backs this up, but one thing that I did find that was interesting was that the word nappy, when used to describe natural hair, may have came to rise with, you know, when people were picking cotton back in the day. Cotton itself looks like a ball of nap, and the people that historically have picked up the nap or the little ball of cotton, as we may or may not know, were enslaved people, and majority Black and African Americans. During around the early 20th century, so about early 1900s, a lot of Black and African Americans started to embrace their African aesthetics, and that included their natural hair, which many Caucasians used to refer to as nappy. And towards the late 20th century, so 1990s, the word nappy slowly trickled its way into popular Black media and started getting a little bit more positive light rather than negative. But still to this day, it still has negative connotative definitions to it, but towards the late 1900s, it kind of started being less of an insult and more part of the culture. So more and more people started using the word to reclaim it, like we do, you know, other words nowadays. But nonetheless, more and more people started using the word nappy as a way to reclaim it, because at one point in time it was used to kind of belittle us and used in a derogatory manner by the Caucasians, the Caucasus, but now we use it as a way to reclaim our natural selves, our natural beauties. Like, yes, my hair is nappy, but it's still beautiful type of stuff. So that's what started happening towards the end of the 20th century. But even after the word nappy started getting a lot of positive recognition, especially within our culture, there was still a lot of negative attached to it and a lot of racist ideologies attached to the word, especially when it came out of the mouths of people that did not, you know, weren't even part of the club. So when people of other races would say the word nappy, it was oftentimes used in a very negative way, not necessarily in an endearing or way of reclaiming way, if that makes any sense. They often use it in a very negative way, whereas when we used it, it was not so much in a negative way back then, at least. I'm not talking about right now. You know, back when people were wearing their little afros and talking about, you know, I love my naps and all that good stuff. There's a few instances that I managed to find. I'm sure there's a way more, but there's a few instances that I found of when people use the word nappy in a very negative way. And the first instance that I can think of was when Don Imus was doing an interview, and he referred to a particular women's basketball team. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he referred to the players in the basketball team, I think it was Black women, as nappy-headed hoes.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm gonna tell you that now.
Actually, now that I think of it, it wasn't an interview. He had a radio show. So after that situation happened, it caused a lot of outrage. His show was canceled because, you know, it was offensive what he said. Nappy-headed hose is not, you don't just say that, you know, that's very disrespectful. So that was one instance where a person, white person, Caucasian, whatever you want to say, said it, and it wasn't taken in the best light, and their show was canceled because they said it. A more recent instance of somebody saying the word nappy in reference to Black people in a very negative way was when Miley Cyrus's sister, what's her name? Noah Cyrus? Noah, is it Noah? I don't remember. But Noah Cyrus, I think, I'm pretty sure, used the term to describe. Hey guys, so it's Editing Natural Academia, and I'm just now realizing that I've been saying Cadence Owens instead of Candace Owens the entire time that I spoke about the situation. So yeah, I'm a delinquent and I really apologize about that. It's Candace, not Cadence. She basically said something to describe Cadence Owens everybody knows Cadence Owens. I think she's, you know, the most kind of controversial African-American woman out right now in America, at least. I don't know. But she says a lot of very controversial things, a lot of things that a lot of liberals don't agree with. She's openly a Republican, I think. Don't know, don't really care about the woman. But so there was an instance where Harry Styles was basically wearing a dress for whatever reason, and Cadence Owens openly discussed her disfavor for it. And then Noah Cyrus proceeded to respond to the fact that Cadence Owens didn't like what Harry Styles was wearing, the dress that he was wearing, by saying he wears the dress better than any of you nappy-headed hoes, on her Instagram post. Oh child, how do you recover from something like that? That was a shot, and that was a very disrespectful shot, but we moved. She ended up later apologizing, like, you know, doing the whole victim thing, like, it wasn't my fault, I didn't know the word was so disrespectful, you know, going back on her word. But girl, you said what you said, and you said it with a lot of confidence when you said it. Let me read exactly what she said. It says here that Noah Cyrus apologized on her Instagram, writing, "I am mortified that I used the term without knowing the context and history, but I know now, and I'm horrified and truly sorry." Girl, you know what you was saying when you was saying it. I hate when they like are openly disrespectful, and then when they get some sort of accountability, like the slightest hint of accountability, is all like, I didn't know, it wasn't my fault. Like, girl, you knew what you was doing when you did what you did. But anyway, despite all those instances of straight disrespect and the history of the word itself, we as a culture, we as Black women, or whatever you want to say, we still, I feel like, do our best to see the positive light in the word nappy. I feel like, I don't know, in my life at least, I feel like we're not allowed to say that it's a negative thing. It's not necessarily like we're not allowed to say that it's a negative thing, but more and more people have been reclaiming the word. Even to this day, a lot of people don't see anything wrong with the word nappy. According to the poll that I did, a lot of people do think that there's a wrong. 2 out of 3 people do think that there's something wrong or something insulting about a person using the word nappy. But there are still a few people that still think that there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we should be reclaiming it. It's something good, whatever. But anyways, let's move on to part 3. So the last 2 parts I went through was the definitions of nappy and also where it comes from. So that was my little short brief section, and then we'll move on to who can use it. So who can use the word, or who can say the word nappy? I mean, I don't even know if this is like a question that I should be asking. It's kind of pretty let me stop touching myself on this camera. Anyways, in general, when we think about the word nappy, whenever I feel like other races of people have used the word, it's never in an endearing or positive way. I don't want to say never. A lot of times when they use it, it's in a negative way. So I feel like in general, other races considering natural hair or describing natural hair as nappy, I feel like it's pretty offensive on in the grand scheme of things. Like, there's other ways to describe natural hair without having to use that word, in my opinion, especially if you're not really Black. But that's just my own personal opinion. If you guys feel differently, go ahead and comment down below. I'll be interested to just see what you guys think about that whole situation. I don't want to generalize the whole of the Black population. I do understand that there are people within the culture, within Black culture, that find the word nappy, when used to describe natural hair at least, as an offensive term within or even outside of our community. So it's not really agreed upon by every single person in our community that is a negative word. I don't think all Black people think that white people shouldn't use it. I don't think all Black people think it's a negative word per se. If I had to, you know, be the judge of this situation, I don't really like the word nappy. I feel like it comes off as very inappropriate a lot of the times. Not even sometimes, more often than not, the word comes off as very inappropriate. So I don't really like using the word. A lot of times when we say the word nappy, it's like, why does your hair look so nappy? I actually have an example. Like, my boyfriend has, oh, see, this is a perfect example because it happened a couple days ago. Recently, my boyfriend and I celebrated, you know, our little anniversary or whatever, and we went somewhere, and I was basically telling my mother about where we went, and she was like, oh, send me pictures or whatever. So I sent her pictures of, I don't think he would mind if I posted the pictures on my channel, but I'll go ahead and put a picture of what I sent to her. So I sent her a picture of, you know, my boyfriend, and we were at the museum, and he posed, and I sent her the picture of him posing. So we finished talking, and I told her I had schoolwork to go do. So I guess she went to go look at the picture. She called me back in like 2 minutes, and she was like, yeah, I know you're busy right now doing schoolwork, but whenever you have a chance, you need to do Timothy's hair because it does not look good. I'm like, what is wrong with his hair? I think he looks, I don't know, I think his hair looks fine. I mean, yeah, it's a little uneven in some areas because, you know, it's in its natural state. It's like curly. He has very, very thick hair and it's not unmoisturized or anything. He I make sure to moisturize his hair when he doesn't moisturize it. Or I remind him like, hey, just spray some water on your hair and, you know, to make it look a little bit more shiny. I do that. His hair didn't look bad in my opinion. I don't think there was anything wrong with his hair. That situation when she said, oh, I need to do his hair because it doesn't look good, she didn't say look nappy. I mean, my mother's Haitian. I don't even think, is there even a equivalent word for nappy in Creole? I don't know. She basically just said it didn't look bad. So I just kind of associated it with nappy. And I was like, why am I associating not looking good to the word nappy? But she was kind of insinuating that it was matted and it didn't look good. So I guess that's why I associated it with the word nappy. But anyways, that situation comes to show that there was a lot of miseducation, not necessarily miseducation, but even within our culture, our hair in its natural state is often seen in a negative light. A lot of times when we wear our hair in its natural state, out, poofy, whatever, and it does what it wants to do because natural hair is wild, we commonly refer to our hair as nappy. Like mothers will be like, why your hair looks so nappy, you need to get it done, you know, and things like that. Like I was reading somewhere that the word nappy can be intensified by putting headed or ass. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? I don't know. So nappy ass hair or nappy headed hair, it just sounds disrespectful. It sounds inappropriate. It sounds rude. It sounds like an insult at the end of the day. So for those reasons, I don't really feel like it's the most appropriate thing for people outside of the Black race to be using the word nappy. It's very insulting, and a lot of times I feel like it's very similar to the N-word. Like I feel like they have kind of similar background stories in regards to how it came about and the racist past behind the words nappy and, you know, fill in the blank for the other N-word. But I feel like they both have like similar backgrounds. And actually, speaking of it, you know, shameless plug, my boyfriend did do a video, I think, speaking of who can and cannot say the N-word, if it's appropriate for people in our own culture to be saying it or not. I'm interested in things like that, so I watch his videos. But if you're interested in that video, I'll go ahead and link it down below. Yeah, so that's actually what happened with my boyfriend's hair and why I don't really think it's appropriate for people outside of our race to be using it, because even when we do use it within our race, a lot of times it's very negative. But even with all that, I do have to also acknowledge that there are a lot of reappropriation of a lot of words that were once used in a negative light towards African Americans or Black people, and words like nappy have been slowly but surely being reappropriated. Is that the word? Appreciated, more and more appreciated. Like the one comment that I got under the community post that said that like she watches somebody on YouTube who has naps in their YouTube name. But there are some few people that use the word nappy in an endearing form and not necessarily in such a offensive way. But all in all, in my opinion, I don't really think people outside of the race should be using the word, because it's just like, what business do you have saying that word? But personally, after I stopped using the hair typing system method thing to describe my natural hair, I started referring to my natural hair as kinky, coily, natural hair. I don't really consider my hair to be a specific type. I personally prefer those terms over nappy. I think nappy is just very insulting. I don't know how many people will agree with that, but that's just my personal opinion. All right, so the next point that I wanted to go over was if the word nappy was insulting or not. And I guess you could say by my own bias that I do think it is insulting, but I'm gonna try to be in the middle with this point and consider both sides of the people that say it's not and the people that say that it is insulting. All right, so based on everything that I've said throughout this video of the word nappy, I feel like we understand that it's both used in a colloquial manner as well as a derogatory manner. And, you know, depending on where you are in the world, the word can be used to describe a diaper. It can be used to describe the kinks on natural hair, the frizziness, and the overall nature of natural hair. And even here on YouTube, a lot of natural hair YouTubers commonly refer to their hair as nappy, not in a negative way, but just to describe their coils and the curliness of their hair. I feel like when it comes to the history and where the word comes from, There's a lot of little small strings of Eurocentricness that plays a role into why we find it so offensive. I wanted to do a whole separate video kind of diving into nappiness and the Eurocentric standards of beauty that ties into the word, but I don't know if that would have been worth a whole deep dive, so I didn't do it. I'm just putting it in this video briefly, and if you guys want that video, just let me know. I don't mind doing it. And when it comes to European standards of beauty, it doesn't necessarily affect only African Americans. It affects a lot of different races of people, but African Americans have the most intricate and most different hair texture of all races on earth, I feel like. Do we? Let me think, so nobody comes to me in the comment section. I feel like it. The nature of our hair itself defies gravity. The nature of our hair is so different, but a lot of times when I even talk to my own mother, not to bash her, I love her, she's an amazing person. I don't think she had any negative intent when she said what she said about, you know, my boyfriend's hair looking a hot mess, even though I thought it looked great. I don't think she had any negative intent, but because it was uneven, because it wasn't flat, because it wasn't neat, even though that's not how our hair looks like in its natural state, because it wasn't those things, what she deems as beautiful, what she deems as acceptable, his hair was not those things, so she automatically associated with being wrong. So good in her eyes is probably neat, sleek, and uniform and all that, whereas that is not how our natural hair looks like in its natural state. So I don't know if you guys understand the correlation that I'm trying to get at with this. And you would think, like, being in 2022, that we would be a little bit more educated as far as like what our hair is supposed to look like and be a little bit more accepting to the natural state of our hair, but clearly a lot of us may not be on that same path. And I do understand my mother is a little bit older, so her views might be a little bit more rusty than mine. That's besides the point. I did a whole video on Eurocentric standards of beauty, I think, in the past. I don't remember. Did I? I don't even remember. But I'm not going to dive in too much into it because I'm pretty sure I did do a video about it. But a lot of times our hair in its natural state is not seen as the most professional. It's not seen as the most clean. I don't know. A lot of people commonly, especially outside of our race, think that our natural hair is dirty and think that we don't take care of our hair, mainly probably out of ignorance and the unwillingness to learn things that you're uncomfortable with learning. For those reasons, I feel like when the word nappy is used, it is insulting. No matter what angle I try to take this point, it always comes back to nappy kind of being insulting. I do understand that some people try to reclaim the word and say, oh, no, it was once used to degrade us, but now we use it as a form of endearment, as a form of affirmation and reclaiming. I do understand that, but in the grand scheme of things, it has a very negative past to it. To me, if somebody walked up to me and was like, your hair looks nappy, I would find it offensive. I don't think I'd be like, oh, thank you, my hair looks nappy. When I think of nappy, I think of like a dry ball of mat is what I think of. And my hair, more often than not, does not look like a dry ball of mat. A lot of times when I leave my hair out, it looks very cute in my opinion. So if somebody walks up to me when I think my hair looks cute and they're like, oh, your hair looks nappy, I'd be like, girl, what? No, my hair looks cute. Even though I don't use the hair typing system, I do believe that there is a certain type of hair texture that is more so associated with being nappier than other textures. I mean, I do have to say it, even though I don't use the typing system, it's kind of pretty evident. So for that reason, I do believe that there is a divide when describing natural hair and nappy hair. So when you think of nappy hair, it's associated with a certain type of, you know, texture. And when you think of natural hair, it's associated with a different type of texture. And I can go on and on and on in this little rabbit hole of like good hair, bad hair, nappy hair, natural hair, you know, all that. But I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I feel like you guys get the gist of this video. I've been recording for a really long time and I'm trying to make this video as short as possible, but it's hard when there's so many different avenues that I could take this in. And with all that being said, let me just give you guys my opinion with what I think. At first I came into this video thinking that the word nappy was offensive, but the more I looked into it, the more research I did, and the more that I learned about the history and the reappreciation that we have done. Considering all that, I honestly I don't think nappy is supposed to be as insulting as it is, but depending on the context, it can be very insulting and very disrespectful when you say it. When I was younger, a lot of times when people said that my hair was nappy, especially in school, because you know your girl did not know how to take care of her hair. So a lot of times when people did refer to my hair as nappy, they weren't using it in the nicest terms. They weren't being like, you know, kind about it. They weren't referring to my hair being kinky, coily, or whatever. They were trying to use it in a very insulting way as a means to make me feel like my hair was not good. And you know, I did start feeling when I was younger that I did not like my hair because of the texture of it. I associated nappy with the texture that I had as a child, which was my naivety, I guess you could say. But a lot of times when I did hear it as a child, it wasn't in the nicest way. I personally wouldn't refer to somebody's hair as nappy. I wouldn't refer to anybody's hair as nappy. If your hair is kinky, coily, or curly, I would refer to it like that, or simply I would just say your hair looks natural, or you have very beautiful natural hair. But other than that, I do understand why some people don't think that the word nappy is insulting, mainly because probably they've heard it in a good context, and context plays a huge role when determining if the word nappy is offensive or not, in my opinion, even though it's typically used in a negative way. But nonetheless, it can be used in both a good and a negative way. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys have any further comments, questions, or concerns regarding anything that I said throughout this video, definitely comment down below and I'll be happy to answer. There's a lot of things I feel like I skipped over in this video. I was just trying to get my thoughts out. I didn't want to have to make this a several series video. I just didn't want to give the word that much attention. I didn't think it deserved much attention. It was just a question that I had in my mind. Why do we associate unmanagement with nappy? That's just, you know, that's just a thought that I had in my mind. I just wanted to kind of answer it. Usually when I have thoughts, I try to answer them like most of us do in this world. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, definitely leave a like down below, and I'll see you guys next time.